Hey, family. We're just jumping on. We wanted to bring you a special version of our podcast today. It's alive. Hi. Crystal and I haven't been together in a while because of what's going on, but we wanted to sit together to talk today. So hop on. Want to invite a couple people, so we're going to wait a little bit and see who hops on, who jumps in. We might act a little crazy because we haven't been around each other in a while.
No, that's all for you.
Might
all
give her a
you.
few kisses on
Ooh,
the
please don't.
cheek
Look,
or something. You know, I haven't been with my baby in a while.
See, y'all, this is why we don't do live podcasts, because she don't know how to act.
I don't know how to act. So I'm going to get myself together. Hey, y'all, I even threw on some makeup today.
Yeah,
Let me give you a little joke. So I was getting ready for the podcast and threw some perfume on. My husband sat clear up and was like, "Where are you going?" I was like, "We're going to do a podcast." He was like, "So who did you put perfume on for? Because they can't smell you." I was like, "You never know. It could be smell-o-vision."
He trying to make sure nobody come and try to take his woman.
He was like, What are you doing? Why the perfume? I understand the makeup. He was like, even that's a bit much, but okay.
Yeah,
so let's jump on and let's talk a little bit. So today's topic, I guess our topic is, what is our new normal?
Mm-hmm.
So we just want to jump on a little and talk about what is assumed to be the new normal, right? What is going on outside? What is going on during this pandemic? How people are feeling about that. You know, I was telling Crystal today I had to run out, or we had to run out and go to the grocery store for some things for the baby and for the house. And while we were out there wearing my mask, I realized it felt a little strange because when I was overseas in Asia, there were a lot of people wearing masks.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking to myself when I was over there, this is weird because my husband and I were like really the only people walking around without masks, right? And I thought it was strange. And then I went out today with my mask on, and when I noticed people not wearing a mask, it was like, whoa.
Like, why you not wearing
Why you not wearing a mask, right? But when I was overseas in Thailand and people were wearing their masks, that's a few years ago though, that was really strange to me. And then today, with all the people not wearing a mask, that was somewhat strange. So we want to kind of talk about the new normal. I don't know how many of you know exactly what we do, those who jump on often or those who know us personally. I don't know how many people know what we do professionally. Of course, I am a speech language pathologist. Most people ask or think that I help people do speeches. No, that's not what I do. There are a gamut of things I do from the age of 0 to 99 in my profession. But for me right now, my niche in the market is an early intervention specialist, which means that I go into people's homes. Right now, I have been blessed to work from home via teletherapy, or via, if you want to say it that way, teletherapy. And with that being said, I'm still going into people's homes, but I'm doing it by a computer. And this week, I had a conversation with a parent who did not understand what was going to happen next. Her statement was, "Miss Clark, I don't know what my new normal is going to be, and how am I going to handle my new normal?" So it really shook me because I realized she was really in a place of, how can I say, anxiousness. She said, "Miss Clark, I'm overwhelmed." The word she used was overwhelmed, not anxiousness, but she used the word overwhelmed. And it really sparked me. I am not a counselor by all means. There is a portion of my education where we have to learn how to counsel parents through speech language deficits and issues that their children may face and have. But I'm not a counselor. I'm not licensed. A lot of people tell me, "Oh, I thought you was a counselor." No, I'm a speech language pathologist. I am a minister of God, a woman of God. I have pastored before, so I've done those things before. So when I do counsel, I'm counseling from the depths of the heart of God. I don't counsel with a licensed professional counsel. Now, my daughter, she is a licensed professional counselor. So her and I were talking this week about some of the things that we were facing with our students, our clients, our families. And we just wanted to hop on and talk about anxiousness from where we see it, mm-hmm, with maybe an answer. Because a lot of times we have thoughts that are provoking to us in society. But I hear a lot of people throwing out negativity about the situation that's happening right now, and there's nobody with a positive answer. And when I say that, I mean, there are always things that are going to come up in our lives that are going to shake us, that's going to send us left or send us right. But it's how we defend ourselves after the fact. You know, me and Crystal always talk about we can sit here and throw every problem out because there's always a problem.
Right.
Life has problems. There are storms everywhere. The question is, how do you make it through those storms? How do you make it through physically, naturally, and spiritually? How do we make it through those things? So that's some of the stuff we want to talk about today. I want to talk about anxiousness in itself because it is an experience, a worry, an unease, or a nervousness about something that is to come, something that hasn't even happened yet, something that we don't even know what's going to happen next. So like I said, I tapped on Crystal and said, hey, what do you think about this as a counselor? How do you feel about this? Because we do have to deal with it. We're going to have to deal with the new normal. I'm starting now to teach my parents or to coach my parents with the fact that I have some autistic babies. You may have to coach them, teach them, help them understand people wearing masks in public, because some of them have behavior issues that may spark an outrage or a how can I say, how would you say it? It may spark something in them, a frustration,
yeah.
a fear, because they've never been around people wearing masks, or they're scared because the only place and the only place they've seen masks are in the hospital. Right. So now you're saying little children are going into places where they see everybody wearing a mask. Some of them have developmental issues and deficits. So I am coaching my parents to understand that this has to be a part of our speech communication lesson for the day. That's called social skills for those who don't know in pragmatics. I am actually coaching parents through this. It's become part of my lesson as a speech therapist to help parents, to help their children to understand that people may be wearing masks. And I tell them, don't tell them necessarily they're wearing masks to keep you safe because the world's about to end. No, we have to do it in such a way that we keep the children aware, we keep the families aware, but we help them to understand why we're wearing a mask at the moment. So this is somewhat of a new normal because people are going to keep wearing masks going forward, no matter how quick the country or the states open up. We have to help people to understand in our daily living that this may be a new normal.
Yeah. And I think that's the problem because a lot of people don't really know how to maneuver with something that's different. Anytime there's something that we're not used to, we have a hard time really connecting and figuring out like how do we maneuver. And I think we fail as individuals when we try to stay in the same type of routine.
Right.
And we expect that even though things have changed, we try to still do the same thing. And when you do that, you're gonna fail because ultimately everything around you is changing. You have to be able to adapt.
Right.
And I don't think people are very flexible. They're not adaptable, and that's the problem. Right. When we're not adaptable, when we're not able to really change what we're doing to fit the new normal that we're in, you're gonna have feelings of anxiety and depression and agitation, frustration, because you're not adapting. And so I think as we talk about what is our new normal, we have to really be able to figure out how do you adapt and change? How do you, one, recognize what the new normal is, and then how do you actually put in forth the steps to actually start to do that?
Right. And I think some of that comes from communication because I see a lot of things on Facebook as far as even from my colleagues, speech therapist colleagues, as well as those in the field of education. And they're asking the questions, and they're asking the right questions. How do we put a desk 6 feet apart for pre-K babies, young children? They want to touch, they want to hug. I promise you, I had to make a quick run to a parent this week. And I told you about that because I was full of like, whoa, what are we going to do? This parent didn't want me in her home. So like I said earlier, I am doing teletherapy from a computer. I'm doing, that's how I'm going into people's homes, helping them with speech. And I had to go to this parent's house because she did not understand how to use the technology. And so this is where I had to say to myself, wow, I can't just leave her here without anything for him because he needs his therapy, he needs his services. So what I ended up doing is putting on my mask, and I went out there, I went to her home, and I was like, okay, we 6 feet apart. This is what we're going to do. She stood at her door because she was like, you're not coming in here, Ms. Clark. And I was like, we cool. I just need you to get to understand how to use the technology so we can get you what you need, because we need to keep a continuity of normalcy for our children, especially those, like I said before, who have some type of deficit or behavioral issue or things like that. We have to help them. And in the field I'm in, that's what it's about. I am an essential worker in that area. And so I ran out, I went to her home. She was standing in her doorway, but eventually I had to get a little bit closer because she did not know how to maneuver the technology she had in order to get the link that I needed her to have so that we can do therapy. So with that being said, we have to be willing or understand, how is this going to work for everybody? For some people, it's not going to work because that's not about equality. It's more about equity. Everybody doesn't have access to the same things. Every classroom can't be run the same. So questions need to be asked, discussions need to be had. We can't just put out policies and then not understand how to guide people through it. You know, as a woman of God, one of the things that I am is I like to teach when I teach the word, because we cannot just say, okay, somebody got saved and they don't know how to walk the next step, right? That's called discipleship. So we have to begin to learn how to disciple people through this new normal in our everyday living in life.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're getting this pushback from people, is because we often tell people, you know, the problem. I think we had talked about this a while back, but we often tell people the problem and we talk about the issues that's going on, but we never really tell people how to, you know, make it through.
Right.
What's the end solution? Like how did you take those steps, and what steps did you take to get to the finish line? I think we fail people when we just give them the problems and the issues that's going on. And, you know, even when I do therapy with clients, I'm very big in my style. I don't want to just focus on the problem.
Right.
Because we can spend all day, you know, talking about the issues that we have, the concerns that we have, the problems that we have, and then we don't put into practice how to really change that. And I think when we talk about what is our new normal, we have to realize that we have to start putting things into place to adapt to that, like I said, and really change. And part of doing that is being problem solvers. So when I teach, I'd like to talk about how can you be a problem solver? Right now, everybody can discuss. We can sit here and we can talk about the problem. The problem is that the coronavirus is happening. The problem is that we're losing family members and friends. The problem is that, you know, we stuck in the house with our husbands,
right,
with our spouses,
right,
with our children. You know, so we can focus on that all day long, because that's the problem. But if you just focus on that, then you're going to have anxiety,
right?
Because you're not doing anything about it. And so I think instead of focusing on everything that's the problem, everything that's going wrong, we need to figure out, okay, these are the problems, these are the issues. How do I solve that?
Right.
And I think as humans, as people, we don't do that enough. We don't try to figure out how do we solve things. We just try to focus on everything that's going wrong in life. And then we wonder why we're depressed or overwhelmed or frustrated. And so as I talk about adapting, okay, if the problem is that you feel like you're overwhelmed because everybody's tagging you in for something, you're with your kids 24/7, y'all. 24/7. You with your spouse, and your spouse ain't going to work, so he cranky or she cranky, and then you cranky because now you cooking meals every day.
Right.
Like what? You know,
yeah, that's a new one.
All of these things are happening, and you these are the problems, yes, but what are you doing? Okay, now we've identified it. Now put into practice, put into some steps of how to really change that. And I think that's where you really try to, or that's where you're going to really see a change in your anxiety and your depression, because you're being a problem solver and not a dweller. And I think that's what, you know, you're kind of talking about. And oftentimes we dwell on problems.
Right.
I think that's human nature. I think as individuals, we are taught in some way not to really be problem solvers. I think a lot of people just focus on what's going wrong, and they have not been taught the steps of how to get through it.
Right.
And so I think that's where we have to make those steps of how do you get through it.
Yeah.
And that's our goal, is to really talk about, you know, how do you maneuver in this new normal,
right,
with everything that's happening, because we want to be understanding, you know, the fact that this is different. This is new for everybody. I think even as a therapist, even though I'm still working, because I'm considered an essential worker as well.
But you're out the house.
I'm out the house, but for me, it's still it's still a new normal for me, because now with my job, even though I'm still working, we have to do so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now we have extra safety precautions that we have to take, not to mention, you know, we are, as a therapist, my goal is just to, you know, talk to kids. That's what I want to do and help my therapists and help my supervisees. But now we are being added to wave systems just in case,
What's a wave system?
Basically, if too many people are too many direct care staff, those are people that actually help work with the kids, if they're out because of some type of problem, or if somebody actually catches COVID, we're put into a wave system where we may end up having to help.
Gotcha.
Meaning sense. Now, instead of me just doing therapy with a kid, I may be sitting there watching that kid, or I may be making lunches for that kid, or I may be cleaning up, you know, things like that. So now we have this pressure of, now we have to be possibly added to wave systems, or, you know, all these different types of things that we have to do. So even though, I'm a therapist, I had to work on changing my mindset because now this is my new normal.
Right.
Like my goal now in my job is not just to do therapy. Now I could be pulled into being lunch lady and making sandwiches for
Right.
children. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm gonna wear my hairnet,
Right.
And so now I have to adapt. But if I don't adapt, if I stay closed-minded, and I focus on the fact that no, I'm a therapist, you hired me to be a therapist, and that's what I want to do, then I'm gonna have anxiety, I'm gonna have depression, I'm gonna be overwhelmed, I'm gonna have all these feelings because I'm not adapting.
Right.
When things have changed, are you doing something to really adapt to that, or are you focusing on the fact that you don't want to change?
Right. And I think for me, I had to realize that too, because I can be a conspiracy theorist, people. For those who don't know me, I can be a conspiracy theorist. And I found that I was reading a lot. And I was reading a lot of posts. I was reading a lot of articles. I was coming up with a whole lot of stuff. But I wasn't doing anything positive with the information that I either had or what I thought about what was happening. And like Crystal said, we can either have a solution, we can deem something necessary, we can figure out what to do, or we can stay stuck as a dweller. Correct. A dweller dwells on thoughts. I'm sure God knew that our minds would wander away from where he wanted us to be, but he gave us ways to get away from that. It's with the word, it's spending time with him, it's doing something different. So I had to, like I was saying earlier, I had to tell my parent this, because she's home with a baby who's recently been diagnosed with something. So now she has to deal with that. She's working from home. She was working from home prior. And so, like, although I'm not a counselor, many of my family know that I am a believer. And so they'll sit down with me. They'll ask me questions. And you know what I do? I take the time to pray with them, even when I don't understand. So I think we had a 30-minute session, and it wasn't with the baby at that moment. At that exact moment, the session was with the parent. Because I help the parent to understand that we need you to understand that this too shall pass. But her question was, like I said, what is my new normal? How am I going to educate her from home? She has deficits. She can't get her other therapies. You are the only one who has been able to continue with us. So I am the only normal that she understood. And so I am the only normal. I had one parent say to me this week, Miss Clark, we didn't see you last week. And that was via the computer. And she said her baby said he finished class and then looked at her and said, I miss Miss Clark. Because throughout the whole process, I have been the continuity for their family. So they have known that we're getting speech therapy on this day at this time and for this many minutes. And so he looked forward to it. So when I got on, the first thing he did was start showing me books. And mom was like, hey, aren't we supposed to be doing therapy? And I said, no, leave him alone. Let him show me these books, because if we were meeting in person, I give him talk time. So I give him time to tell Miss Clark something. So he has his time and I have my time. I give him time to talk about what it is that is his problem, and then his situation, or whatever you want to tell me, whether it's a story throughout the day, and then we go into therapy. That's the same way that I'm choosing to even live in my home right now. I have a younger child who is taking classes online. So one of the things that I do is I make it a normal part of my day once I leave the computer to say to him, how did your classes go? What did you find was a big yes for you today? And what was a big no? I don't want that, or I don't like that. Where are you stuck in your mindset? Where are your thoughts today? And this is how him and I talk. What are you thinking about today? What are your thoughts today? What do you want to do tomorrow? You're getting ready to go into another grade. You're not going to get to finish out your year. You didn't get to finish seeing your friends. What is bothering you today? And sometimes we just have to be honest with people and let them talk. It's not all about us having the answer either, because I don't have all the answers. Right. But what I've learned to do is allow people to speak, allow people to share their heart, and to help give them, or not even give them, help them to think their way through the process so that they can come out of it.
No, that's good. And I think the biggest thing that you touched on was communicating. And I think in this time, in this season, with everything that's going on, if you're feeling overwhelmed and if you're feeling anxious, the most important thing is to communicate. Ultimately, I feel like communication is big, no matter what was going on. But even more so during this time, it's important to communicate. So if you're a mom and a wife or a husband or a child even, and you're feeling overwhelmed or you're feeling anxious, I think the most important thing that you can do after you recognized it is to communicate it. Correct. To tell that person. So as a wife, if I'm feeling overwhelmed in a moment, I'm going to communicate that. And Chad already know. He know when Gracie, I'm like, okay, now tag you in. Right. I'm done. I'm tapped out. And he come and he take over, but he wouldn't have known that if I haven't told him, like, hey, babe, I need you to take her at these times because
Right.
I need to do schoolwork that's everybody's telling me is important, or
Right.
I got to do this, or I got to do that. So I think when you recognize that you're feeling overwhelmed, communicate that.
Yeah.
I don't know why everybody has such a hard time communicating,
Right.
but people do, and I recognize that in my field. I've learned people have such a hard time communicating. And that's such an important piece. And if you're talking about feeling anxiety or feeling overwhelmed and trying to live in this new normal, you have to be able to communicate to people. You have to be able to have a support system.
Yeah.
Who are those people that you're going to talk to? Who are those people that you're going to confide in and say, I'm cashed out. I can't do anything else. Like, I'm overwhelmed. I'm financially burdened. Like, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
You have to be able to confide in somebody. Not everybody.
Right.
You got to know who's the person to talk to, because everybody.
You don't want to just talk to everybody.
But you have to have people that you can talk to, or somebody that you can talk to that can be your support system. So you have to be able to communicate that, and that's what you kind of said. Right. And communication is important across the board. But as you talk about trying to live in this new normal, and I know for you, the reason why this was really put on your heart was because of, somebody you're working with and her feeling overwhelmed with having her child and doing her business and doing all these things. And a lot of people are doing that right now. There's so many people that even if they're not doing their own business, they have to work from home and they still have to help a child do homework, and with all of that, you have to communicate your needs. And I think what you said at the end, when you have those discussions with your younger child, because you're not going to say that. You don't want to put him on blast.
My younger
with the younger child, at the end of the day, every day, to kind of talk to him and say, okay, what's going on? Like, let's talk about what was the highs and the lows of the day.
Right.
And I think everybody should kind of do that.
Yeah.
Because the same way you're feeling overwhelmed, and as a parent, as a person, period, you should know, especially when you're working with kids or you have kids, anytime you're anxious, it's important to check in, because I promise you that kid's probably anxious too.
I agree.
And especially since kids feed off of the energy that you provide.
Right.
And so I'm always kind of cautious of my energy when I'm even working with my clients, because I know they can feed off that. And so as much as you're feeling overwhelmed, I promise you that child may be sensing it.
Right.
Even if they're not feeling it, they're probably sensing it. And so they're probably walking on eggshells, like, I know Mom about to crack.
Right.
And so doing that check-in is good, because then you get to talk to them and say, okay, this is what I need you to do. I have to work from A, B, C hours. You know what I'm saying? So I need you during this time to do this. And obviously, if you have a younger kid that's not going to understand that, that's where I'm going to say, one of the biggest tips I'm going to give you all is going back to what I said earlier, change your routine.
That's a good one.
Your routine has changed. Like, I'm sorry to tell you this, but if you're no longer dropping kid off to daycare, then going to work, or come back home to go to work, if that's not your routine anymore, and now your routine is you wake up, help your kids with homework, and you have to do work at the same time, you have to change your routine. You have to adapt to that. And if you don't adapt and you try to do the same thing that you were doing before, it's not going to work.
Right.
And so with the younger kids, of course, you can't really do certain things differently. So you have to adapt. You have to change. You got to figure out how to maneuver in that, be a problem solver in that moment. But if you have an older kid and you notice that, you're being overwhelmed with, somebody who's 10-year-old or older, even I'll say 8 nowadays, because a lot of younger kids are very smart. And
I would say 6.
I would say know your kid.
Right, know your baby, period.
I know plenty of kids. I have a client and her daughter's like 5, and her daughter is so smart. Right. And so whatever age your kid is, and you can really talk to your kid, and they can understand what you're saying, that's when I'm going to say, have that communication with them and say, okay, have that conversation. Oh, I need you during this time to do this. Right. And then we can do this afterwards, because kids need to understand that too. And as much as everybody as parents is feeling overwhelmed, every client that I meet with that's a child is so tired of being in the house.
Oh my, yes.
So I spent probably 10 to 15 minutes of each of my sessions just talking about their new normal.
Right.
And so now my job is creating and helping them understand, okay, this is coronavirus. You can't go outside.
Right.
You can't go to your friend's house. I'm sorry. You can't go to the movies. Oh, you thought this was vacation, because when we first had our session, all of it was like, oh, yes, I get to
no school.
No school. By the 3rd week, everybody's like, I'm Miss Clark, I'm tired of this. Miss Chris, I'm tired of this, because they still call me Clark and Chris at times. So I'm tired of this. I don't want to be in the house no more. And so now I have to help them through their new normal. Okay, you can't do all these things that you thought you was going to be able to do. So how do you manage? How can we do some things? Now I'm helping them manage when they're being bored, or you talk to me about ideas you have. How can you start doing those ideas? And so with anything, you have to create that new routine. Right. In the same way you as a parent is feeling overwhelmed, your kid is just as probably tired of dealing with
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
as you are
I
tired
agree.
of dealing with them, because
Right.
they gotta talk to you and they're trying so hard to make you their friend, because
Right.
they can't talk to their friends and physically be with them. And so y'all have to just have that conversation if they're older and really figure out what is it that they need,
Right.
and what is it that you need. And if y'all
Right.
come together and have that moment, you're more likely to get what you need from each other and not have those feelings of being overwhelmed and anxious.
Right. I think you said something that was good, because when we started this, like you said, a lot of people thought that this was vacation. I'm not talking so much about adults, but some people was like, okay, I can do this for a little bit, but then it stretched out a little bit longer. One of the things that I want to let you all know is that because of this, you may want to go and find a social story that's dealing with this. You can find social stories on YouTube. I use them all the time in my profession. You can find a social story for those that are younger that's teaching about what we're going through right now. Why are people wearing masks? Why do we have to be in the house? That's a tip. Crystal gave you a tip from her profession. I'll give you one too. Social stories help a lot. And then for the adults, one of the things that I have learned, even with my husband, I heard Crystal talk about chat, and that was really a good thing. We learn to debrief during the day as well, because he still works outside of the home. I'm still at home. So I think those who stay at home and who are essential workers from the house, because even if you're a stay-at-home mom, babe, you are a stay-at-home parent, period. Correct. You are an essential worker because you're keeping things moving in the house for everyone else who may have to leave and go out. And for me, I got tired of the question of what we eating today. That was like, what'd you say? Excuse me? Right. Yeah, God. Right. So I was like, what are you eating today? And I was like, but I am working 8 hours or 6 hours or 7 hours through the day. So I don't have time to stop in between and go downstairs and cook and come back up. I'm still with clients. So we had to debrief. We had to have the conversation that while I am here and I am cooking meals, mom who did not work is not back. The domestic engineer of the past is not back. I am a working professional, so I'm doing it from home. So we had to debrief too. And like you said, communication is important. First of all, that's my field. I do it all day long. I teach people how to communicate with one another. What do they use? Body movement is communication. Your facial features are communication. So I've learned to read those signs sometimes with those that I'm closest to. And so we have to debrief. We have to communicate as husbands and wives, as spouses, as people in the same house, because we're in the same house. I found that me and my baby, me and him are in the house the most. And so him and I were like nitpicking at each other. I found that the two of us were the ones that were going because the two of us are in the house more. And so him and I definitely, like I said earlier, debrief. We definitely take the time to talk. But I've also learned that I debrief with those that are closest to me as friends, as family. When someone calls, my first statement is not to just get to what I called about, or I let them know. I say, okay, slow down. Let's talk for a minute. Let's do a check-in. How are you today? Because mentally, there's a lot going on. There are people out here who are trying to be strong for everyone, and they are breaking down because their own strength is breaking down. So then we have to figure out where's my strength? I know for me, my strength is in the Lord. And so I've learned that when I've gotten weak, I have to go to him. The word talks about that in my weakness, he is strong. So I'm learning to give him my weakness, even in this area. I don't know what's next for me. I know that right now I'm doing teletherapy from home. Will this be my new normal, or will I be going back into people's homes? I don't know. But I've learned to give him my thoughts, because one of the things that can happen is your mind starts to play tricks on you. So it becomes hopeless. There's hopelessness, especially if you're watching the news all the time. Stay off the news. Stay off of the social media. And like for me, what I've started doing is I literally block people off of my social media. If I notice that everything that comes down my timeline from this person is negative, I stop following. I'm just being honest. I stop following if it's too negative. I will not look at it or read it. I just keep going, because I know that stuff gets inward, and you start to sift. You start to just, sleep with that, think with it, and your mind is racing. Stay off of the TV if all you're listening to is when we're going to get a vaccine, when is this going to happen, the number of deaths in the state.
What Trump doing now today.
Right. What your president doing, what your governor doing, all these things. Stop feeding yourself that and find things that feed your spirit healthy stuff, not unhealthy things at all, because that's not good for you, because you're doing too much of that. And then your mind starts wandering, and then you don't know how to come back from that dark place, and it becomes hopeless. It's hopeless. We're never going to get out of this. If I go outside, I'm gonna drop dead because it's in the air. If I touch anybody, they breathe on me, it's just over. I'm not saying don't take things serious. I'm not saying don't listen to it, but you gotta learn how to filter. Filter is a word. Filter. When we are cooking, those who do cook, when you're sifting flour to maybe make a biscuit, or you're sifting to make a nice fluffy cake, you sift to make sure that the flour gets the lumpy lumps out. So we need to sift what we hear and get all those lumps and negative things out of here.
You touched on so many good things look, y'all, I have to write down some points because this lady will keep going. I'm like, I'm going to miss my thought. But she touched on so many things that I was going to hit on. And one of those major things, as I'll talk to y'all about steps to managing anxiety around the coronavirus and COVID, is don't obsess over the news.
Correct.
And stick to the facts.
Correct.
There's so many people that I meet with that I have to tell them, stick to the facts. Stick to the facts. Everything is not the truth.
Come on.
And some things you don't even need to feed yourself. You know, when you're listening to the news every day, every hour.
Don't we know somebody like that?
You on social media all the time, and all you're doing is posting sad stuff.
Right.
And, you're feeding that. And when you feed yourself, you are going to have those things that are going to come. Hey, Mary. So you have to make sure that you are staying away from things that are causing anxiety.
Correct.
You want to decrease anxiety. You want to decrease depression. Stop obsessing.
Right.
Stop feeding yourself those things that are causing those
right.
things. And that is going to be the news. And so sometimes we have to detach. Do you need to be up to date on things? Yes. I do think that you should keep up to date,
be aware,
and be aware of what's happening. But I don't think you need to do it constantly. So for me, I listen to the morning show on the radio. And that's the person I get my news from a doctor, and I listen to him in the morning. That's it.
Right.
And I have the little news app, and so it'll send me some little news, and that's it. Aside from that, I'm not constantly doing it. And for me, it's even more important because that's my job. My job is to work with people, so I constantly
have to stay
deal
on
with
top
their
of it.
anxiety.
Correct.
Too. And
Correct.
so since I got to deal with your anxiety around it, I don't want to go home. The last thing I want to do is go home and talk about it more. So
Correct.
That's one of the major things. And then the other major thing you said was, even checking in with your friends.
Yeah.
And one of the things I had is that even though we are physically disconnected right now because we're not able to be with people physically, do not emotionally disconnect and still check in.
Yeah.
It's going to be so important for us to still check into those that we consider friends, those that we consider family, even your neighbor.
Yeah.
My mom already know I'm not a neighbor person. I stay in my house. But if it's a neighbor that I like,
she's good at isolating. Very good at it.
It's not a problem for me at all. I'll be fine in heaven.
Right.
But everybody else, I understand. There's anxiety around this. And so check in, call your mom, call these different people and check in with them. How are they doing? I tell my clients all the time, yes, especially my kids, because it's like the world is over. I miss school. I can't talk to my friends. Right. Ma'am, you got a cell phone. They got a cell phone. Y'all
make it work.
Y'all use social media for everything else, but now all of a sudden you can't contact your friends. No, you just can't physically be with them. Right. So use your phone. Get on Skype. I had told one client, because I saw it on that Netflix was trying to release something where they could do like movie night together.
Oh, cool.
Even though
I remember that. So
I was like, hey, look into those resources. All of y'all are so smart. Y'all are so creative. And so still connect to those that you care about. Stick to the facts.
Yeah.
Don't obsess. Try to still connect with people even though you're physically separated. And remember that there are going to be things outside of your control.
Yeah.
I think when we
try to control
everything and do everything.
Thanks, Chad.
When you try to control everything and try to manage everything on your own, that's going to create anxiety and that's going to create so many feelings of being overwhelmed. But what you have to do is remember that there are going to be things that's outside of your control.
Right.
So when I talk to my clients,
that's a good one.
I always say, what's in your control and what's out of your control?
Yeah.
Only thing you can focus on is what's in your control. Right now, what's out of our control is the coronavirus.
Can't do nothing about it.
Unless you have the cure. And if you do, speak up. Unless you have the cure, it's outside of your control. So we can't control it. But what can you control? You can control your emotions.
Right.
You can control what you do. You can control what you say. You can control everything that's happening around you. You can control in some way what you even last to think about. So you can't control your thoughts completely because a thought is anything that pops into your head. But are you dwelling on a thought?
Yeah, you can push it out.
You can push it out. You can't control if it may come in that moment, but you can control how long it stays there.
Right. You can control how long it stays. Right.
It's very important for you to remember that you have to control what you can control. Right. Whatever outside of your control, problem solving.
Yep.
if the problem right now is outside of your control, well, now for Georgia, of course, whoever's in Georgia, it's a little bit different right now. But for other states, if you're still having to stay at home and things of that nature, what can you control? How do you control the fact that you have to stay at home? You can't control it, but how can you control what you can control in that?
Right.
And so it's so important as we talk about what is our new normal and managing this anxiety feeling that a lot of people are having, that you remember to focus on what you can and not try to control everything else around you.
Yeah, I want to leave y'all with some scriptures as well, because Proverbs 12:25 talk about anxiety, and it talks about anxiety in a man's heart weighs him down. That's exactly what Crystal was talking about. When something comes in your mind, a thought comes in your mind, you do have the right to push that thought out.
Correct.
You do not have to dwell on it. That's the most important thing. I can tell you from a person who has battled depression that's one of the things that I had to learn. I could not wait for someone to counsel me out of it, for God to come down and rip it out of my head. What I did learn, though, is that because God is so graceful, because he loves me so much, he has given me the tools to get out of that place. And I had to start opening my word and to fight those thoughts, those things that were in my mind. I fought them with the word. I learned what God said about me, and I learned what he said about my situation. That's the same thing I'm doing now with the coronavirus and the things around me. What I have been doing is taking this time to spend time with God, but at the same time, find me in the midst of it, to slow down. There were a lot of us before this pandemic happened saying, I'm overwhelmed, I'm tired, I need to rest, I need a vacation. And sometimes we got to be careful what we ask for and what we think about, because now we have an ability and a time to rest, and we're not resting mentally. What we're doing is we're just playing and replaying the negative. We're playing and replaying the what ifs. We're playing and replaying how do we. Well, sit still for a minute. It's going. We can't control what happens next with this virus, with them shutting things down. But what we can control, like Crystal said, is what we think, what we do, how we respond to what we see. That's an important thing. So scripture, Proverbs 12:25, read that. Philippians 4:6-7. Do not be anxious about anything, but all things through prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. Let your requests be made known to God, right? Supplication. I'm going to tell you what that means, because I have a lot of people ask me, what does supplication mean? It means asking and requesting humbly. So God is letting you know you're going to pray, but be humble in your prayers, and know and understand that you can come to me and ask me whatever it is that you need with thanksgiving, giving him thanks that it's already happened, not waiting for it to happen. You're already saying, Lord, I thank you. I thank you, Lord, that you've already provided for my financial misfortune at this time, God. I thank you, Lord, that you've already provided the food that we need. I thank you, Lord, that we've already provided. That even helps with that part of the anxiety where people are worried about what is their day to day. I can tell you, I am an independent contractor. So my finances are not straight out. My husband is in the airline industry. So he took a major hit, because if y'all notice, ain't a lot of planes flying. He has told me there has been flights going out with 8 people on it and maybe some cargo. So with that being said, he took a big hit in his pay. He took a pay cut. He's still working, yes, but he's definitely not getting as many hours. So with that being said, every day we have to depend on God with my mortgage being paid. We have to depend on how are we going to feed ourselves. Another thing that we have done well is our family has bonded together.
I agree.
Our family has bonded together. Whether it's Crystal's home, my sister's home, my home, we have bonded together. So like she said, check on others, because sometimes you can help one another. I was telling somebody this before. If there is a church that is closed, the church that is open might need to ask this church that is closed, how do we do what we do? If there is the church that is open needs to talk to, there needs to be conversation. There needs to be conversation and communication. Like I said, I'm big on it because I do it every day, teaching people or helping people, coaching people to understand how to communicate and gain a voice. How do they have a voice to speak about things? So that's important. So those 2 scriptures are great. And then there's 2 Corinthians 10:5. Casting down imagination, making sure that you're casting down imagination. So I'm always going to be the one to come with that scripture. Can't leave it out, y'all. It's in me. So take those scriptures, write them down, and use that word, because it's power. I promise you, it is power.
No, it is. And I think as we continue to talk about just managing this anxiety in this time, as everybody's anxious about something,
Right.
Whether it's finances or being stuck in the house with somebody, or not being able to do what you want to do. Because I'm not going to lie, for me, because I am still working, it's killing me a different way, because it's like, you know, usually before I could do certain stuff, I could still go somewhere on the weekends and kind of refuel. And because of the type of job that I do, I feel like it's even part of my self-care is refueling by doing stuff.
Right.
Because I have to release what people burden me with in their own way, because they have to. That's my job. And so for me, I have to learn how to deal with this new normal, because I'm not able to go certain places, sit in certain restaurants, go watch the movies like I want to, and eating is my favorite. You know, I'm not able to do that. And then I had to cancel vacations. I'm like, Lord, I was looking forward to that vacation. Yeah. You know, and so I have to learn how to change that. But even with all that, I had to switch gears and say, okay,
that's good.
What's some self-care I can do?
Yeah, that's good.
And so with you having all these feelings, are you still practicing self-care?
Right.
Because that is so important. And yes, I understand that not everybody's going to be able to do certain things, and it's going to be dependent on the household that you have and the support system that you have.
Right.
But this is where I'm going to say, figure out what works for you and your household to have some type of self-care.
Right.
Because it's so important. Along with self-care, you know, like I said, it's creating that new routine. Change, adapt to what's happening, because if you don't, you're going to continue to stay stagnant, and that's not what you want if you're feeling already overwhelmed and anxious. So change your routine, change what you can change. It goes back. What's in your control? What's in your control? Change that, adapt that. Fix it to work for you, and practice some self-care, some relaxation techniques, something that you can do to help you reset. Because even though you're in the house with somebody, doesn't mean that you can't still reset. There's still things that you can do. It just may not be fully what you want. And so that's where I would say it's a mindset thing.
Right.
You have to change your mindset, because when you just stay stuck in the fact that maybe you want to go somewhere that you're not able to go, it's like we said, focusing just completely on the negative, you're going to keep having those negative feelings. And so, you know, with those thoughts, if they come, what are you going to do to counteract it?
Right.
What are you going to do to counteract it? You know, so if you're going to practice some self-care, practice some relaxation techniques, tell yourself some positive stuff, and figure out what is the cause of your anxiety, and then do something about it. Don't stay stuck on the problem of what's causing the anxiety, but how can you solve that problem? And I think that's going to be, you know, very key for a lot of people.
Yeah, that is key. So like Crystal said, practice some self-care. We did today. We had to run out, so we had to get out there. But one of the things that we did do is we stopped to get some ice cream. And it was beautiful, because I don't think we've had ice cream in a while. We did not go in. We ate it in our car. Matter of fact, I think we ate it at home. We brought it home with us. But be smart. Even in Georgia, because Crystal mentioned earlier about Georgia and the fact that a lot of things have opened up. Be wise. Be smart. You can't judge people that do want to leave the house, and even if they want to leave the house without a mask and gloves, you cannot judge them. But if you have safety precautions, you take them. I have my own, so I take my safety precautions. I don't wear gloves, but I do wear a mask. I'm very cautious about things that I'm doing. So it's up to you. Be smart. Don't judge others because they're not doing it your way. Just be smart. And like she said, take time to take care of yourself. All right?
We love all of you. Yep. Thank you for joining. Everybody who did. Catch y'all another time. Hope y'all enjoyed this live. She got me to do it.
Yep, because she don't like it.
All right, bye.